Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Offseason. Today we got the great pleasure and honor to have Ethan Finlay with us in attendance. He's a 2011 graduate from Creighton, and we're delighted to have him today. Ethan, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, no, super excited, man. For those of you that don't remember, in 2008 was Ethan's freshman year. He actually came in a semester early. He graduated high school in December of 2007 and came up to Creighton in January of 2008. Man, that's to me, that seems like 20 years ago.
Oh, you and me both. Yeah, that was crazy times. You know, graduating high school at that point, I turned 17 my senior year. So, you know, I went to college at 17 years old in January. I don't know what my parents were thinking. Child endangerment, to be honest with you. That's nothing bad about Creighton. That tells you what college is all about. But, yeah, I mean, what a great, honestly, first semester. And, you know, I've talked about this with you and you know, Bob Warming and my roommate at the time, you know, Greg Jordan, who came in at the same time. You know, that first semester really paved the way for where I am today.
I tell you, you know, we started doing that right around that time where we started to see what players would be able to do something like that. And I'll tell you that you and Greg Jordan probably ended up being, for me, the guys that were able to acclimate the quickest. It's definitely something that we don't encourage everybody to do, and especially if we feel like maybe you're just not at that time in your life where you're mature enough to be able to handle the amount of pressure that goes with going away from home during that pivotal moment in time of your life when you're, like you said, you turned 17, to be able to be on your own really at the collegiate life and be able to take on so much academically and do what we do to be a Division I athlete. I think speaks volumes of what you were able to do, because you were an impact player for us immediately your freshman year.
Yeah, and that helped so much. I mean, I remember the trials and tribulations of that, you know, first 2008 season. You come onto a team that's already super talented with offensive players in particular, and I was like, you know, where am I going to be able to find, you know, my spot? And I think coming in, I earned respect first and foremost from guys in that spring. And you really don't have that moment where, you know, the fall comes around and you're the rookie or the freshman. You know, I think guys viewed me as, one of them and kind of accepted me. And I think that helped me to relax and be able to trust my game. And, you know, scored a couple of goals, had a couple of assists that first season and kind of got it going. But, you know, that first 2 years were, you know, I think back about it, at least on paper, one of some of the most talented teams. So to just come in and be able to, you know, play and start was huge. And like I said, Creighton, those 4 years that I was there are unforgettable moments, left and right, usually obviously in the fall time.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, for me as a coach, one of the biggest things that is pretty difficult to find, and I'm a big believer in that it's very hard to coach, is competitiveness. And that's something that you possessed. And so I think that that's one of the first things that got you going at Creighton. You talk about gaining your teammates' respect, but I think the fact that you came in even as a young pup and you were competitive as all get out, I think right off the bat got you a lot of respect with your teammates because, I remember in particular, we're not going to mention who you stepped up to in the locker room, but there was an incident about a training shirt that maybe was taken out of your locker, because you were the freshman, right? I think somebody thought that they could go ahead and take your equipment and use it for that day because they didn't want to use theirs or whatever the situation was. But I remember seeing you go back to that senior and ask for your training shirt, and there was a little bit of abrasiveness about it, and I just kind of looked the other way. I'm like, you know what, good for him. And I knew right then and there that this kid's gonna go a long way.
Yeah, you have those moments. You have them in college. You have them. I've had them in the professional ranks as well. But yeah, and that was one of those moments where you have it off the field. And I know we had many on the field. I got into it. In fact, we were just talking about it with one of my old teammates and my best friends, Greg Jordan. This is a guy I lived with, and we were playing in a 5v5 game, and we were juniors at the time. And I called him a name, and then we were doing some fitness and running, and he came to me afterwards and got in my face. And if anybody knows Greg Jordan, he's one of the nicest guys. He's a tough player. He really is. He's hard-nosed. If you get him off the field, he's just one of these nice, sweet guys, right? Wouldn't hurt a fly. And I call him a name, and to see him react to me is exactly kind of what, I wanted, right? I needed that because it fueled me. And then, obviously, hopefully it fueled other players to compete and push me. And I knew at that moment, Greg would have wrecked me, honestly, if he gets into a tackle to me. But those are all those little moments that, you learn in college. And I just remember coming to Creighton thinking, okay, geez, I'm 17. There's 22-year-olds out here. It's like there's no crying in baseball kind of thing. You just got to kind of get on with it, right? They don't care. These are men. You have to just, in a way, stick up for yourself, but also do it in, a respectful way. But, it was an experience. College was one of the best experiences that I've had in my life, just the ups and downs that you face on and off the field.
Well, it's such an important part of your life when you're in that age, right? You're migrating from being a teenager and you're phasing into becoming now a young man, and that's part of the reason why I love my job. Back in the day, my coaches made such an impact on me and Brett Simon and Coach Warming, and I wanted to be able to give that back as well, which is why I chose what I chose to do and coach at this level, because I think it's such an important time in our lives, and I want to be able to reciprocate that and help with the current guys now, But it's funny, when you were talking about your story with Greg Jordan, I started thinking of other stories about Greg Jordan when I would play as an assistant. And, Greg was such a nice guy off the field, like you said, and he still is, but he was an absolute maniac on the field. And I remember a possession drill where I was playing and he elbowed me in the back of the head, right? And I'm like, holy cow, I think I'm going to lose my job today because I'm going to go get this guy back right now. What are you doing? And it's you look back at it now and it's a healthy competitive environment, and that's what I tell our current guys. We don't want to make it an environment where it's easy and it's all fluffy, because nobody's going to get better that way, right? We got to have a competitive edge, and it's got to be a healthy competitive environment to make sure that we're pushing one another and getting better every day.
I think you're burying the lead there, to be honest, Jhonny, because the lead there is that Jhonny was dominating that day, and that's why Greg elbowed him in the back of the head. So that tells you how good Jhonny was back in 2008, 2009. I remember when you came on as a second assistant, just being what an opportunity. And I sat with Bob Warming. I think we were at Spaghetti Works outside in the parking lot after I went on my official visit. And I just remember him telling me that they were bringing, you had just come on, I want to say. It was 2007. Yeah. We're going to have a Heisman Trophy guy in here. Johnny Torres, and he is going to be like a great mentor to you. And at the time, honestly, I was like, okay, I didn't know Johnny Torres' name. I had to go home and Google, and I had to kind of figure it out. But what really was like apparent to me was, again, you'd step on the field, you'd lace the boots up. It could be on a Sunday after a Saturday night game, and some guys that didn't play much, we thought 5v5, okay, we need some numbers. You'd jump in or possession, and you would just dominate. And honestly, as much as I learned from you coaching, I learned probably just as much just watching you like play, because you were so you were so smart. And honestly, I've taken what you did there as you were, an older player, and how you were dominating these college kids who are like, hey, we should be fitter than this guy. We got more skill, I would think. No, it was like you were just smarter and skilled. And that's why I think, like I said, Greg was like, hey, I'm enough of this guy dancing on the ball, scoring goals. I'm going to have to kick the crap out of him. But, yeah, I just remember that was just like, just a part of like my learning process was really, as weird as it is, watching you at times, and how you coached obviously, but how you'd play and how you'd outsmart guys.
Well, you know what? You're very nice for saying that, but now it at least makes me feel like it was worth getting beat up by Greg and Sergio at the time, that you at least learned something from it.
What I learned is if you dance too much, there's going to be somebody who's going to come for you. And it's going to hurt later.
My God, that's awesome. That's awesome. Listen, obviously, we're hit with right now. We're in a really tough situation with what's going on with COVID-19, and take us through a typical day for you nowadays, where you should be in season. You guys just got out of preseason, and you were kind of starting to get rolling. Take us to a typical, Minnesota Thunder or Minnesota FC day for you these days.
Yeah, it used to be Minnesota Thunder. Back in your day, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, Minnesota United, we had great preseason, and then stepped up into the season with 2 wins on the road. So off to a flying start for us. And it was Thursday before our first home game of the season, where we got a notice from our team admin that the game this weekend was called off. And I think at the moment, for a lot of people, that was about mid-March. We're thinking, okay, COVID-19 is growing, but unless it affected you in your day-to-day life, we honestly, a lot of people just weren't paying attention to it. And it was really at that moment where I think my mindset started to shift, and thinking, well, how long is this going to be, 2 weeks or whatnot? Now I sit here over a month and a half later, and I haven't really seen my teammates outside of a Zoom call. I've talked to my coach again, just on the phone or whatnot. For the first couple weeks, you'd be surprised a professional soccer player didn't have enough soccer balls to really do his own training. I had 1 soccer ball, and it was actually, you're gonna love this, it was a commemorative ball that I had from the 2015 MLS Cup.
Oh,
so
wow.
I actually put some air in this thing that I used to just display, and I started using it. I don't have great memories from that MLS Cup anyway, so I guess I can use it. But it just kind of, that's a little bit of a picture. But what our week looks like right now is we are doing. I got done doing a Zoom call this morning with our team, where we had a yoga session. We've been doing some workouts. The team has gotten us some cones and some balls, a little bit of workout equipment. But it's a lot of on your own. You got to be intrinsically motivated to get your work in. There's different ways that the team has been trying to get numbers in. So they're asking us to go run a 1 mile as fast as possible, or how far can you get in 6 minutes, and try to send those numbers in. And if you don't have an Apple Watch, or you don't have a Garmin watch or something to track that, it can be a little bit difficult. So everyone's trying to make do and do the best that we can from a physical side. And the other element to that is mental. And that's where I think I've been most challenged, to be honest with you. I think you touched on, I'm a competitor, and I'm competing against myself every day to continue to work out. But right now it's a mental challenge to obviously obey the stay-at-home orders, but also trying to get as much social interaction where you don't feel claustrophobic, or you start to feel almost in a way lonely. So it's a great challenge right now, but at least here in Minnesota, people are doing a pretty amazing job, and our healthcare workers are continuing to do an amazing job. And hopefully we just continue to get more testing and, people obey these orders and we can get the world back to the great place that we know.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to have people like yourselves, someone that's a professional athlete and you're already on a pedestal, whether you like it or not. But I think it's great to have people like you to be an ambassador and a leader to show the community, listen, we got to obey these orders and do the best that we can to, social distance right now so that we can lessen the drive of this COVID-19. It's pretty scary stuff. And, I commend you for being able to do your part in being a leader in the community.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying. We've got some homemade masks that my wife and I will wear anytime we go to the grocery, just to protect ourselves and obviously protect other people. And, we're doing what we can here. We teamed up actually with a local food bank here that feeds kids with an after-school program on the weekends, and now kids aren't going to school, so there was a big need for them. So my wife and I teamed up with them, with our team, and challenged our fans actually here in Minnesota and raised, about $5,000. So we were extremely happy with that. And, like you said, just trying to play your part. And I think everyone, the thing is everyone has a part in it, right? Whether you're a professional athlete, whether you're the Creighton head coach of the men's soccer team, or whether you're a fan of both, right? Everyone has a part to play. And like you said, we have to lead, obviously. And, everyone can be a leader in this environment.
Absolutely. Cool, man. Well, it's been great catching up with you. As you know, during this show, people have the opportunity to post questions. And so I think we can dive into some of these questions now. I don't want to lose my questions here. I'm going to ask you the first one.
Okay.
This first question was from Justin Thurman. What was your workflow on the field identifying the times to initiate your runs? And did you have any favorite techniques to frustrate defenders?
Yeah, so I'll answer the latter question first. I mean, I used to love to trash talk. I'll be honest with you. I mean,
can attest to that.
I do it to my own teammates. I still do it today. I really enjoy a little bit of trash talk. And, if I don't get anything back, then it probably isn't really working. But I always enjoy a little bit of trash talk, whether I'm talking about the last game I played against the guy or how much I dominated him in the first half or whatever, right? I really enjoy that. So that would be my mental technique that I try to use when it comes to getting an advantage on defenders. As for runs, they always say, and you've heard this, is, the run dictates the pass. And I think that is somewhat true. But at least in my position, what I've learned is I like to think of it as the ball and the body position of the passer will dictate my run. And that's the timing of it. So we had two great players. I played with two really good players who were 10s. Andre Gatsmanov, who I played with briefly when I was a freshman, and his ability to get on the turn and be able to pick a pass with his left foot specifically was super talented. And, he was able to make a lot of the passes. So for me, when you're ever playing with a guy like that, you're always trying to see when he's get his body turned and where's the ball positioned. He was a special one because he could do it from all different angles. That's when you want to have started to initiate the timing of your run. Because if you just start running and the guy hasn't turned or the touch isn't right for him to pass it, you're going to end up being offsides, or the timing is just going to be off. The other guy I played was Choco. Jose Gomez was, what a find he was. I think you were the front guy there that got him in. And he was a catalyst, I really think, from a creative standpoint for our run in 2011 and even from the team in 2012. But, a player, again, who when he could get on the turn, and he could get on the turn so easy. You don't see many college players who have the ability to get in those soft pockets and to just get his body turned. I would just be pulling off back shoulders. So I'm looking for one of two things. I'm looking for his body position and him to be turning open. And then, the next thing for me is I need to be usually on the backside of a defender where I can make a flashing run where even if we're even, that I'm going to get the angle on him. And that's something you did so well is, when I, would watch you play again in those little pickup games on Sundays or, some of your old film, being able to find those little spaces and even if you're not faster than certain players, if you have a better timing of run, there's no way they can get in front of you and catch you. Absolutely.
No, I think this is one of your strengths, being able to find the seams to get a steam of to get running towards goal. You get a lot of guys that make runs the whole game, but a lot of times their runs are angled towards the corner kick flag. So they end up having to play it back to their left back or their right back, or, they're, cutting the ball backwards. Whereas a lot of the runs that you make, you're aiming your runs towards the goal, which is efficient play, right? But I think it's an art. I think, number one, it's understanding what you're good at. There's a reason why you probably look to run more behind than you do to check in. And I was the same way. Number one, I don't want to get kicked. I'm kind of soft. So I'm not checking back for the ball. I'm looking for empty spaces, and you were so damn good at that as well. And to me, it's an art. It's something that can make your career go even further and give you another weapon if you're able to become good at it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
I'm going to ask you the second question. We think we might know who's asking this. We have an idea because it was unanimous, or it was there was an incognito here, and we think we might know. We don't want to say any names. Hoy.
Yeah.
I think it's Hoy. But his question is, what was the? Oh no, not that one. No, where is it? I'll find it here.
It's the fourth one there.
Yes. What upperclassmen impressed you the most before coming to Creighton or during your first season? Hoy wants to
I don't know. Is the punctuation right? Yeah, that looks like Hoy probably. It's a really good question. Who impressed me the most? When I came there, Andrew Duran was, the National Gatorade Player of the Year, like the year before me. Not to say he didn't impress me, but he was a really, really talented player, and soccer somewhat seemed easy, and he really couldn't, honestly, just stay healthy enough because I think he would have had a much longer professional career had he been able to. But a guy that I was, always impressed with, who was kind of a really quiet guy to me, was Chris Schuler. Chris was a quiet guy who, I came from Indiana on a transfer that, to me, I just think, like, he was so calm, and it was just so chill and how he kind of, like, went with his life that at the time when I got to Creighton, I was kind of enamored with, like, how he kind of just would approach soccer at times, because I think I would stress out about it. And, there's some good of that and bad of that, of course, but I think seeing it impressed me that, like, it can be done in different ways, and that you don't always have to be, like, hyper, like, okay, I got to do this. Because I think one of my issues I had, and I learned from it, is we should talk about this deep breath, right? As you're striking the ball, like, breathing out, not like, and I remember you used to do that to me, Ethan, you're always like, you're tight, you're stiff, right? And so, like, he, to me, kind of played, like, very laissez-faire. And then the other guy that I want to touch on, but I didn't get to play with him much, is Andre Gasmano, right? That he was one of the silkiest players.
Yeah.
And so when I say, like, impressed, like, his just pure talent at the college level, and then combined with how good his left foot was, those two, to me, were some of the most impressive players. And I think a bit of it was their demeanor on the field. They were very calm players, which at the time when I was getting there, I wasn't. Again, I was a very stressed player. I played very stressed. I didn't play as relaxed. And I think I learned that from both those guys, how they approached the game.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned Andrew Duran, and you mentioned his inability to stay healthy, which might have shortened his career. And, I always think back to his 4 years at Creighton, and we really only got him to play his senior year in 2011, and I think he was such a big part of our run into the Final Four in 2011. That record still holds. We played in 23 games and gave up 5 goals.
Yeah.
In 23 games.
Yeah. Chase Peters, right?
Yep.
Chase Peters. Yeah, Chase Peters. Holtby, obviously. Yeah. It's that team, that 2011 team, and I know we're gonna say, okay, we made it to the College Cup, but when you look back and you see the talent, and then, like, the numbers that we were able to put up, it's still it's a bad dream when I wake up and we didn't win a national championship, or at least make it to that final.
It's crazy. Was Eric Miller and Tyler Pollock, were they both freshmen?
Yeah.
So you had Tyler Pollock playing left back, freshman, Eric Miller from Minnesota, freshman, playing right back, and then we had Jace Peters and Andrew Durant playing as center backs, And Jace Peters was a Doan transfer.
Yeah.
And Andrew Duran was a senior, but really that was the only season that he was able to play because he had a lot of injuries. Came in with he had something going on with his lungs, right? Yeah, like
he had mono. He got mono, or he got something like, or they thought it was mono, right? That freshman year.
Yeah.
Then the ACL. Yeah.
That's crazy. But what a great squad. Memories.
All right, I got one for you here.
Okay.
From Marky Mark 3455. What was Johnny Torres' best memory when playing for the MLS?
My best memory. I thought about this, and I think a lot of people would say, oh, well, I scored my first goal, or I got to play in front of 20,000 people. But I'll tell you, my best memory in the MLS actually came 3 years into it when one of my childhood idols got traded from, at the time was the Dallas Burn. They were called the Dallas Burn, and he was traded from Dallas to New England, and his name was Leonel Alvarez. So for anybody that followed Colombian soccer, the biggest, brightest star for Colombia was always Valderrama. He had the big blonde hair. But opposite of him, right behind him or somewhere around him, the guy that would do all the dirty work and win the ball and give it to Valderrama was this ugly guy with black curly hair, the opposite of Valderrama, and that was Leonel. Now, I know it's different for me because I was always an attacker. I always wanted to score goals, and Alvarez is completely the opposite of that. He was more of a destroyer and a ball winner, but nonetheless, he was a childhood idol of mine because he was so tough. In fact, in Spanish, his nickname is El Barón, which is translated into, the tough guy, the rugged guy. And I mean, this guy, he won Colombia's version of the Survivor. He went to the Amazon. Really? He went to the Amazon and won the Colombian version of the Survivor. So, I mean, that tells you that nickname he had was it fit him well. And so for me, my favorite memory was coming into the locker room before we trained there in Foxborough and being able to see this dude, a guy that I idolized when I was 4, 5, and 6, to be able to, be next to him in the locker room and learn from him, really, because he was a great person in that he loved taking younger players under his wing and helping them out. And he was a workaholic. He would train twice a day against what the coaching staff would say, and he would sneak back onto the training field, and he would take all the young guys like myself, and he would bribe the groundskeeper to let us on the field, and he'd buy him cases of beer for him to open the field up and let us on the training field. He trained twice a day. So I'd say that's probably my favorite MLS memory.
That's awesome.
I'm going to come up with the next one here.
All right.
Ben Elzinger wants to know, Ethan, how was your time in Columbus?
Yeah, I mean, Columbus was great. I always have fond memories in Columbus, from, MLS Cup to getting drafted there. It was, where I met my wife. So, I love Columbus. And, it's one of those things where, it's a business, right? You just touched on guys getting traded. It's a business, and you have some control of where you can go, and sometimes you don't. Saying that, I feel like I found a great home here in Minnesota now, and I spent 5.5 seasons in Columbus, and now I've been here for 3 seasons, and you played at a couple different clubs, played in some different leagues as well. Like this is the professional, that profession that we've chosen. So you always have fond memories of the places that you've played usually, and it's no different for Columbus.
Yeah, I have it's a memory. Well, it's a special memory, but doesn't bring pretty thoughts because I actually went to Columbus with New England, and we played in the very first game of their brand new stadium back in, I want to say this would have been 2000 maybe, because before their new stadium they used to play at Ohio State at the Horseshoe. But we got to play in the very first game, and we got killed. They were so excited. The fans were going nuts. Jeff Cunningham and John Stern just had a field day. It was 3-0 at half. You know? Yeah, we came back. I think we might have scored 1 in the second, and I think maybe we finished 3-1. But that game could have been 10-0. I mean, we got shelled. And so, although it's a memory, it's not quite the prettiest memory. But yeah, we got to play in the very first game in Columbus Crew Stadium. That's
cool. That's pretty special.
Yeah, it was special. It was a special whooping. That's what it was.
I've been on plenty of those though. Trust me. You know, it's weird that you remember some of the worst ones, right? You know, the close games. Sometimes you're like, I don't really quite remember that game being. You know what I mean? But like the ones where you get whooped, and like for example, that being their first game opening up the Columbus Crew Stadium there, it's like, yeah, you have that one. It's kind of almost ingrained in your memory now, unfortunately.
Right. Listen, we only have time for one more question, so I'm going to ask you.
Right.
I'm going to ask you a question of my own. So, being that growing up, you wanted to be a professional soccer player, and this is something that you strive for. In your opinion, has it been everything that you thought it would be? How would you take this? Have you embraced it? Do you feel like it's above and beyond what you ever expected, or is it just what you thought it would be? Or give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I've had 2 moments now in my life where I think I've been challenged in a way where soccer's been taken away. One right now today. And the last one was when I tore my ACL in 2018. And, those 2 moments reminded me of how much I love this game and how much it means to me. So, being a professional soccer player obviously allows me to play this game and to get paid for it. But if you take that out of it, I absolutely love this game of soccer. I love to compete. I love to be with my teammates. And so everything that goes on with, being a professional, and the difficulty and the sacrifices that you have to make, the weddings that you miss, the high school dances that you weren't able to go to because you're doing club soccer, whatever it might be, the date parties in college, all the sacrifices that you have to make, the extra fitness and so on. It's all worth it to me, because on the other side of it, I get to do what I genuinely love, whether I get paid for it or not. And the reason I say that like I'm so confident in that is because of, those 2 moments in my life where now soccer's been taken away. I miss it so much, like you miss that girlfriend, you know what I mean? Like you miss your kids when you're on the road kind of thing. That's how I feel. I don't have neither of those. I'm married, and don't have any kids, but that's how it feels to me. And that's how, like, I know that, what I'm doing, is so right for me and worth every sacrifice that I've, had to make. And I think you can find that whether you play professionally, whether it's a sport, whether it's business or whatever you're doing. Like, you really, like, if you don't have that feeling where, like, when you're away from something and you're not able to do it, it might be one of those moments where you have to kind of say, like, am I really doing what I love, or am I really making a difference? Is this, like, fulfilling me? And that's also one of those moments where I think professionals feel that, where, like, maybe soccer isn't doing it, or you can't physically do it, and now you have to start to flip to what's next in the world for you. Luckily, I haven't had to face that yet, but I love what I do. I love playing the game of soccer, and I love being able to put a smile on people's face, and it's extremely fulfilling for me, and hopefully for many others to watch me play.
It's awesome, Ethan. And again, for me, you're such a great example that you were able to do both, get your degree, and now doing the thing that you've wanted to do and aspired to do for the longest time in your life, is to be a pro. And you were able to get your degree in 3.5 years and go on to now give it a shot at being a pro, and you've done a great job. Thank you so much for tuning in today for our show. We were so excited to have you.
No, I appreciate it, and I hope everyone that listens will enjoy it, and maybe we'll do another one down the road when we get through this pandemic.
Absolutely. Look, and I just want to take the time to tell our viewers, you're doing a great job. Stay positive. Focus on the controllables. Take it one day at a time, and we'll get through this. We'll get through this together. Thanks for tuning in to the off season.